What's up YouTube, and welcome to another Procreate Dreams tutorial, where today I'm going to show you how you can create this hammer and nail animation. Now, it's up to you what you want to do. You can go ahead and draw the assets with me in Procreate first. We're going to draw them in Procreate, and then we're going to go ahead and bring them into Procreate Dreams and do the animation. Or you can go ahead and download the assets that I used, and you can simply then go ahead and crack on with the animation from the timestamp you'll be able to see on screen. It may be worthwhile to you doing the Procreate part just so you can sort of factor in what you would need in order to create an animation of your own potentially in the future with different expressions, for example. If you like this type of content with Procreate Dreams, let me know in the comments down below, and also drop a like on the video and subscribe for more Procreate Dreams and Procreate content. And if you didn't already know, I post 3 more exclusive Procreate tutorials every single month to my Patreon supporters. I'll throw up the latest 3 on the screen now. If you want to come and support the channel over there, you can hit the link in the description down below and get access to a catalogue of over 90 exclusive tutorials. And with all that said, let's get started. So once you've created your canvas size, and by the way, just as a reminder, it's not the normal canvas size, it's 1080 by 1080. And you've added in this very, very simple guide. And to do that, I do have an instructional blog post that you can look at to go ahead and do that. But it's as simple as going up to your actions and inserting the file or photo, depending on where you saved it. So let's get started with the hammer. We've got our guide here. We're going to create a couple of new layers and swipe from left to right on both and group them together. The top layer out of this too, we're going to go ahead and go to our colors, and we're just going to double tap at the bottom of the disk to select black. And we're going to use a nice solid brush for our outlines, which is going to be the monoline brush. And I've also gone ahead and gone onto the monoline brush and just made the stabilization max, or the streamline, and the stabilization around about 50. And hit done. And the size is going to be 6, if not 5% on the sides. Let's go to 5% instead. So it's just a little bit thinner because we do have the nail to draw in as well. So let's go to 5%. First thing we're going to do is simply outline the entirety of the hammer. So we're going to go on that line here, going to draw down, and we're going to get in all of our outline work. So we'll draw down, hold our pen down at the end to get a nice straight line, and just curve the bottom out as well. Then we'll go ahead and draw in a horizontal line along here, a little bit wider than the handle. And then we'll draw in the underside here. So it's going to come up a little bit and then wrap around towards the hammer head over here. And I'll just carry on in this direction. So I'll draw in a line. I'm going to make it a little bit longer, a little bit bigger than what the guide shows, just to make sure that the curve that I've created here has a little bit of sort of space where it tucks up underneath the head. So I'll draw up from here as well, drawing in a nice straight line and another one across. We'll then go ahead and we'll draw in another curve. Now what we'll actually do is we'll draw the top here first. Now don't worry about the eyes for a moment. We'll draw in like this, and then we'll rotate our canvas so we can try and mirror this. You could even copy it if you wanted to. I'm going to hold my pen down to create a nice arc, and that runs in pretty smoothly and pretty symmetrical. So we'll leave it at exactly that. We'll then go ahead and do this back area here. So we're going off that straight line at the top, and we're curving down, creating an arc and holding our pen down. Now if you need to edit an arc, you can just simply go ahead and come up to here and edit it. And you get 3 nodes, and you can just drag them into position where you need them. And you can adjust the curve itself as well. Tap away when you're done. We'll draw in a little line here, and then we'll draw in another curve in towards this area here. You can edit it if necessary, but it's not necessary to keep it sort of immaculate to my guide here. And then we'll just draw in this final line here for the top area. So we have our hammer outline. Let's quickly outline the eyes. Now we need to go ahead and create a new layer for the eyes. So we'll create a new layer. We'll go ahead and we will just trace over our guide, creating our shapes. So the eye, hold your pen down, and I don't want a circle. If you put your finger on the screen, you'll get a circle, but I want this kind of ellipse, and it's a little bit taller at the top. So we're going to give it some nice cartoony eyes. And then we'll go ahead and we'll go to our layers, swipe it to the left and duplicate it. The bottom one out the 2 of the ellipses, we'll grab our cursor, we'll move it across, and we'll just scale it down using the uniform option here to just match up to the guide. So we're just going to scale it down in size, maybe even rotate it a little bit so it points upwards and outwards a bit more. And then tap on your cursor when you're done. At the minute, we've got a lot of lines overlapping, so let's tidy up a few of those. So we're working on this back circle. We'll just grab our eraser, tap on the eraser and use the monoline brush. And we will just erase into here. And we will bring our brush down in size. So using the monoline brush as the eraser, and just get rid of this area here, because that tucks the eye on the other side of our hammer. If we then go ahead and go to the hammer itself, and we get rid of this line here inside of this eye, now all those sort of outlined areas stack on top of each other. And let's then go ahead and add the pupils. So we'll go ahead and we will create a new layer in this group at the top. We'll go back to our brush and we'll draw in the pupils. So we'll just create another ellipse. Hold your pen down, and that looks pretty good to me. We'll drag and drop the color in, and then we'll simply go ahead and swipe it to the left, duplicate it, grab your cursor, move it across, rotate it a little bit and scale it down in size. Just because it's on the other side, it just needs to be a little bit smaller, and then tap on your cursor when you're done and just triple check that it looks like it's looking at our nail here. Now at this point, you're done with your outline. Even though we've got the mouth, etc. to do, you don't need to do that yet, because we need to create the basic shape of the hammer and then apply slight variations of the hammer. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pinch all of those black layers together. We're going to tap on that layer and we're going to reference it. So now every layer is going to look at that outline as to what to do. And if we go down to the empty layer underneath and we go to our colors for the palette for our hammer, so we're going to grab this color here in the top left of the palette, drag it into the handle, and it fills it in. We'll then go to the top color in the second column. We'll drag it into the head and also this area over here as well. Now we can go ahead and also go to our colors, and we'll just double tap in the top left to select white, and we'll drag white into the eyes as well. Let's then go ahead and add some very basic highlights and shadows to this. So we'll go ahead and we will create a new layer for a moment. We'll tap on that layer and clipping mask it to the shapes here. We'll go to our colors. We'll go ahead and grab the shadow color first of all for the hammer, which is going to be the middle color in the second column. Same brush of the monoline, we're just going to start to add in some very simple highlights and shadows. So we're going to just make our brush probably around about sort of the 15% mark, and we're going to just go over the top here on the back end, keeping it nice and cartoony. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to just swoop down into here and up in towards that point there, making sure we then just go down here and fill in the rest. Now, if you go to use your fill tool, remember that the reference tool is still on. So we can go up to our layers, tap on the hammer outline and turn off the reference just in case you want to do that. Make sure we go back down to the clip layer. We'll then add in our next shadow. So we're just going to create a curve under here, into there. And then we'll just sort of curve this area here too. And then on the end here, we'll just create a shadow, a few sort of horizontal lines on the end there like so. And we'll also create a little bit of a shadow underneath the eyes. Now you can't draw inside the white areas, so just bear that in mind. We just want to add in a very simple shadow like this. Let's then switch to our highlights. So we'll go to the bottom color in that second column. We will go ahead and add in a lovely big highlight on the top edge up here, letting that just go in behind the eyes. And then we'll also add in a little bit here towards the front. So we'll create a little bit of a swoop here in this little space of the hammer. And then another couple of little bright areas. I've gone all the way to the top though on this occasion, just to really sort of shine that area out a little bit more. And you can make them as big or as small if you like with your highlights and shadows. Let's move to the handle. So we'll go ahead and go to our colors and grab the shadow color, the middle of the first column. Brush size can probably be around about the same, about sort of 25% on this occasion. The first thing I'm going to do is just shadow underneath here. Shadow underneath. I'm then going to go ahead and draw in a line down here, leaving the tiniest little gap there on the right hand side. The tiniest little gap, and now I'm going to thicken it up as well. So we've got this tiny original base color there. And we'll zoom in on the bottom and we'll just round off the bottom as well. And we'll add in a highlight on that side too. So we'll go to our colors and grab the bottom color in that first column. And we will go ahead and add in a highlight that's going to start just where that shadow ends. And bring that all the way down this edge here. And you can make that a little bit bigger. You can bring that in and then up and just draw in right up close to your shadows. Fill that gap in. And you got a lovely hammer, all animated in terms of its highlights and shadows. Now at this point we want to create some variation on the hammer. So let's go ahead first of all and pinch the clip layer to the base layer. So all of our colors are on one layer. And let's also go ahead and clip the outline as well. So we've just got one layer in here. We're going to create a new layer. We're going to go to our colors. We're going to grab black by double tapping at the bottom of the disc. And we're going to go ahead and zoom in on the eyes over here. We're just going to create the variation in the frown. So we want to create some nice frowned in lines here. Now that needs to be down to the size it was before, so about 5%. And we're just going to create a frown. And you want to kind of just bring those lids across a little bit. So it's kind of like eyelids and also a sort of eyebrow at the same time, essentially. So we're just creating that little bit of a more aggressive look to the eyes. And that is another variation of the eyes. But what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and go around the top here. And also along this line here too. So that you can go to your colors. We'll grab the base color for the hammer at the top of the second column. And we'll drag this color into those spaces there. Let's then create a couple of variations for the mouth as well. So we'll create another new layer. We'll go to our colors and double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black again. We're going to go ahead and create an ellipse again, just to create the surprise look. So we'll go ahead and draw in an ellipse. And you want to bring it off the side a little bit, just so you've got a bit of a gap there. And with that, you can go ahead and go to your colors. You can double tap in the top left to select white and drag it into that space. And now we've got this surprised expression of the hammer. We'll go ahead and we'll create another variation. So we will turn that one off. We'll create a new layer. We'll go to our colors and double tap at the bottom of the disc again to select black. And we're going to draw in the smile. Now, earlier on, when we had our stencil at the very bottom of our layers, if we drag that all the way to the very top now, you'll be able to see the outline that I've provided. And it gives you sort of the guide as to the size. So if I go back to that empty layer in the hammer group, I need to go ahead and draw in this line here. Giving it a bit of an evil smile, and then just link it up along the black line here. So I'm drawing just on top of another outline, just again, so I can go to my colors and double tap on the left hand side to select white and drag and drop white into that space. And now we've created the other expression of the mouth. Now technically you've got all of your expressions ready to go now for the hammer anyway. So we will turn off the guide at the top. We will turn off the background color here, so it's completely transparent. And the first variation we will do is the frowning and the smile. So we're going to go ahead and go to our actions. We'll hit share. We will go ahead and hit PNG. And then when this menu pops up, just hit the option of save image and that will save it to your photos. Then when we come back to our canvas, we're going to repeat. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn off the smile. We'll add the shocked expression and we will turn off the frown up here. We'll then go ahead and go to actions. We'll go to save it as a PNG again and hit save image yet again. And the final variation we want to save is we want the option of the smile but with no frown. So we'll turn on the smile, we'll turn off the shocked expression so we get this variation. And then again, just go up to your actions and save it as a PNG. Congratulations, you've created your first character and all the expressions that we need for it. Let's go ahead and move on to our nail. So we'll go ahead and turn on the stencil at the very top that we moved up. We'll just go ahead and collapse our hammer group down. You can keep it in case you want to make any adjustments. We'll go ahead and create two new layers and swipe from left to right on both and group them together. So this group now is going to be our nail down here. Now zooming in, we're going to go ahead and go to our colors and double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black again. We'll make sure our brush is still the monoline, which it is at 5%, so it matches up. And the first thing we'll draw in is the head here of the nail. So we'll draw this in and we'll draw an ellipse. We'll pop our finger on the screen just to make sure it's a perfect ellipse. So I'm going to pop my finger on the screen here and hopefully it snaps into place. And then what we'll do is we'll draw in these two lines here for the sort of body of the nail. So we'll go ahead and go down a layer. We'll go ahead and we'll draw in two straight lines down. Pop your finger on the screen to make sure they're nice and straight. And also in the center of your nail. And then just go ahead and link them at the top. Don't worry about the excess in here because that'll get lost in a minute. And also link them at the bottom as well. Then what we can go ahead and do is add some additional colors, of course. So we'll go ahead and we'll create a new layer underneath the disc. We'll go ahead and tap on the disc. We will go to the option of reference again. We'll go underneath the disc on that blank layer and go to your colors and grab the gray, the top of the second column, and drag it into that space. And while we're working there, we'll simply just go ahead and go to our colors and also grab the shade color here, the middle color in the second column. We'll go ahead and just at this bottom edge here, add in a bit of a shadow. Likewise, we'll switch to our highlight tone at the bottom of that second column and we'll add in a bit of a highlight. So then we can go ahead and go down to the column. We will tap on it and we will turn on the reference tool. We'll then create a new layer. We'll go ahead and just grab the column and move it above the empty layer. And then the empty layer underneath, go to your colors, grab the base color for the grays, the top of that second column, and drag it into that space. And then go ahead and go to your colors and grab your shadow color, the middle of that second column, and just add in some shadow coming down here. So I'm just drawing it in fully until I get to around about here, trying not to run outside of the boundaries of your nail. Now, of course, we've got to draw in some eyes here as well. So we're going to go ahead and first of all, we'll pinch the circle at the top here, the top of the nail together, and also we'll pinch the column together. Now, underneath the sort of head of your nail, we're going to go ahead and create another new layer. Go to your colors and double tap at the bottom of the disc to select black. And we're going to zoom in and we're going to create a circle here for the eye. Hold your pen down and pop your finger on the screen. Make sure it's a nice perfect circle on this occasion. Then we'll go ahead and we will go to our colors. We'll double tap in the top left to select white and we'll drag white into the center of the circle. We'll then go ahead and swipe it to the left and duplicate it. Grab your cursor, use the uniform option and scale it up just a tiny bit and move it over here to the right hand side. Making sure that none of the eyes go sort of above and into the space of the nail at the top, the head. Now, if we go ahead quickly and we turn off our guide, you should now be able to see your sort of nail character sat there ready for some more details. So what we'll do is for a moment, we're going to go ahead and we will pinch the two eyes together onto one layer. And then this group, we're going to go ahead and swipe it to the left and duplicate it because we're going to need another version of it afterwards. So we'll turn off the top group out of our nails. So we've still got the bottom group of nail. So you should have just two groups, one off and one on. Now in this group, we're going to go ahead and just give the nail the pupils that are looking up at our hammer. So we kind of need to point them up here. So we're just going to simply go ahead and make sure we're on the eyes here. Our color is set to black by double tapping at the bottom of the disc. And we're just going to add like a bit of a dot here. Now we want to go bigger than that. So let's make the dot probably around about sort of 34%. And just adding in two little dots here where the nail's looking up at the hammer. And that is that one done. So we'll go ahead quickly, and while we're here, we'll go ahead and turn off our hammer. And with our guide also turned off at the top, we'll go up to our actions and we'll save it as a PNG. And once we're back, we can then go ahead and make the next variation. So we'll go ahead and collapse that group down. We're going to turn it off. We'll go up to the extra one that we made. We're also going to swipe that to the left and duplicate it. So you should now have four groups, three of which are the nail, one of which is the hammer. The second group here of your nails, we're going to go ahead and open that up. We're going to make a variation to the eyes. So we're going to go ahead and tap on the eyes. We're going to bring that size down to the 5% mark. And we're going to create some sort of quite straight across lids here on the eyes, because this nail's fed up of being hammered into the ground here. So there's just going to be some really sort of miserable looking expression here. So it's just like absolutely livid that it keeps getting hit. So just a little something like that, like it knows what's coming. And then again, we'll go up to our actions. We will save it as a PNG. And then when you're back again, we're going to go ahead and go to the empty group above. We're going to turn it on. Now notice I've not turned off the group below, because what we're going to do is this group here is going to be sort of the flattened nail. So we're going to open up this group. We're going to go ahead and delete the eyes because we don't need the eyes in this top group. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab the head of the nail. We're going to also turn on our guide again. So we've got the head of the nail. We're going to grab our cursor and just simply move it down to where I've positioned it on the guide. And that is it's in its flattest state. And we'll tap on our cursor when we're done. And then what that means is we can then go ahead and go to the column of the actual nail. Go to your eraser and just erase this top area here. And you can tell if you turn off the group underneath, you can tell if you've got rid of it, because it will then all disappear. Now we only kept the original one on just so we made sure it was all linked up at the bottom. And that's your flat nail state. So again, make sure to go up to your guide and turn that off. Go up to your actions, save it as a PNG, and you're then done with this part of the design of creating all the content. Let's go over to Procreate Dreams now and get started in there. So over in Procreate Dreams, I'm going to go ahead and create a movie. So we'll go up to the plus icon. Now, another thing to learn in this tutorial compared to my first one is you can change the resolution of the movie. Notice how mine says HD, and by default it will say 4K. But if we tap on it, we want to change it to HD. And we also want to change it to the option of a square, which then matches the same canvas size that we created over on Procreate. It will be 1080 by 1080. And we're going to hit the option here of empty and go through to our brand new stage. Now, a couple of things I want to do straight off the bat is we're going to go to the file name here. We're going to tap on it. We're going to go ahead and go to the properties because I want to change the duration. We're going to tap on this and we're going to change it to 7 seconds. It will probably be ever so slightly shorter than. We've changed it to 7 seconds. When we hit done and we go back, now you might not be able to see, but our track duration now is only up to the 7-second mark. And let's go ahead and create a track. So we'll go up to the add, we'll add a new track to our timeline down here. So we do have the one now, and we can zoom in a little bit. We can drag that out widthwise to show our track. Let's go ahead and import some of the content that we're going to need. And the first ones we'll go ahead and import is going to be the photos of our hammer. So when I zoom in, I've got a few of my photos. I've got this one here that we want. So we're going to hold down on that and select it, or you can tap on it to select it. We then want this one, of course, as well. And we want this one, of course. So we'll hit add. And what that will do is it will add all 3 images onto that track with even duration and onto our canvas. Now they're actually in exactly the same position as they were in the Procreate file. Now what we want to do is we just want to rearrange these slightly. So the first one we want in our drawing of our hammer is we want this frown with a smile. So if you don't have that, the only thing you need to do is simply hold down on it and you can drag them around and move them around. So let's just simply go ahead and grab this one because we need that first, and make sure you don't drag it beyond that edge there. So you hit the red line. Now the first one we want again is the frown with the smile, and we're going to zoom in and we're going to make that around about half a second. You can see your timeline there and there's 1 second. So all I have to do is hold down on the right hand side and drag that in to around about the half a second mark. We're then going to zoom out. We're going to go ahead and see what we've got here. And the next one is the shocked one. And we want that now. So we're going to drag that up to the edge. You'll see that little red line pop in. We're going to go ahead and zoom in. And we're going to drag this one to around about just the 2-second mark, or just before. We're then going to go ahead and zoom out. And you'll see that you can actually add stuff beyond your timeline. It just won't be present. So we'll just drag in the final one. And that one should be then the eyes wide open with the smile. And then we're going to go ahead and go to the beginning again, because if we drag our playhead down here just to view it, you can see we've got the frown and the smile. We're going to hold down on that one and we're going to go to the option of copy. We're going to grab our head and we're going to drag it along till we get the smile with the open eyes. We're going to hold down on the end and we're going to drag that to around about the 3-second mark. Again, always looking at this area here for your timeline. And if we move our playhead to the end here, you can simply hold down and then you can go to the option of paste, and that will paste in the one that we had at the beginning, and we'll drag that so it touches the edge. So now it transitions from the open eyes to the more frowning eyes. And we're going to move across in our timeline, and we're going to pretty much drag this one all the way to the end, which is going to be around about sort of the 5.5-second mark. With Procreate Dreams, I tend to already think that there's a lot of sort of adjustment you can make later on. So when you sort of lay things out like this, there's always space for just tweaks and adjustments here and there. So that is your hammer track all in play, and you can see sort of the expression, how it's going to make its way through the process. Let's add in the nail as well before we start to actually animate them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new track. So we're going to go to the plus, add track. We're then going to go ahead and hold down on that track and drag it underneath our hammer. We're going to go all the way to the beginning with your playhead. We're going to go to the plus and we're going to insert the photos we had for the nail. So we'll go to our photos and we've got the one looking upright. We've got the one with the, oh my God, I'm about to get hit by a hammer. And then we've got the flattened nail as well, and hit add. Now these ones are going to need rearranging a little bit. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and grab the flat nail here. We're going to drag it and we're going to move it all the way to the beginning of the timeline, and it should just budge the other ones out the way. Now we'll just make it so that it's the start of the timeline, holding down on that right hand side of the asset. And we're going to hold down on the right hand side here and we're going to bring that all the way in to a pretty similar mark around about here where that mark is. So it's actually touching. So we may make adjustments later on, but it's the same duration as the one above. And you'll see that if I hold this down and then I make my way in towards that gap, it's just going to add the red lines to let me know that one there, Joel, is right up against the edge of that one there. We're then going to see what this one is here. So we're just going to grab our playhead, and this one here is the one with the eyes looking up. So that's perfect. We'll drag that to here up against the edge of the flat nail. We're going to make sure that goes to around about the 3.5-second mark. So we're going to hold down on here and drag it to around about the 3.5-second mark here. We can make it a little bit shorter if we want to. And then we're going to go ahead and grab the one where they are just ready to be hit by the hammer. And we're going to make sure that that one goes to around about sort of the 4.5-second mark. So around about here. So we'll hold down on the right hand side. We'll drag it to that mark. We'll then zoom out and we're going to go back to our beginning and hold down on the flat nail. Copy it. And then we should be able to hold down over here and paste. And then zoom in and we'll just make sure that the flat nail is touching the edge here, and also grab the right hand side and drag it so it touches the edge of the hammer. Now they are the same duration. So let's go ahead and just see where we are at the minute. If we drag our playhead right to the beginning, we hit play, we can see the nail pops itself back up and then the hammer gets ready to hit it and then the nail ends up flat again. But of course we've got a few little things in there that we need to do in terms of animating this. So we're going to do all the movements first, such as the hammer, and then we're going to add in all those little line effects that you see to show motion. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to this clip here. So this part here where the hammer is shocked, because I want to add in sort of a bit of an expression here where the hammer is just completely shocked that the nails managed to do this. And we're going to add in 2 effects onto here. So with your action timeline head here, you can just simply tap on it. You'll get the action menu and we're going to go to move and we're going to go to move and scale. We'll tap here to make sure we add a keyframe, and we're going to go ahead and drag that all the way to the sort of point around about here, about sort of 3/4 along. Tap to add another keyframe. So what that is that is exactly the same position it's in right now. So we've added 2 of the same. So that if we drag into the middle here and we add a new keyframe, what this means is this is what it was like normally. In the middle here, we'll make an adaptation, and then here at the end, we want it to go back to normal. So we just duplicated this one essentially, put it over here so that we can go through the process. So here in the middle, when you tap on this little keyframe here for the move and scale, we're going to do a couple of things. I want it to get a little bit larger and also sort of lean backwards a little bit. So we're going to make sure we tap on this middle head here, the move and scale, and then we can come up here and make some adjustments. Now if you tap on the node in the top left here, you'll see this tiny little line here pop out in the corner. That will allow us to rotate it, and we're going to rotate it a little bit backwards. So if we then sort of scroll through this, you can see now it leans backwards because it's shocked. And then we're going to go ahead and make it a little bit larger. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to come to our track again. We're going to grab our action little head here and we're going to make sure we're on here, not on this little track here. We'll tap, we'll go to move, and we're also going to add a warp to this. So this is the first time we've used the warp. We're going to do exactly the same process. We're going to make sure we tap here just to add a keyframe. We're going to go all the way back to what is going to be normality here. So we're going to tap to add another keyframe. So these are both normal. And then if we go to the middle, we're going to tap here to add a keyframe that we want to make a little bit different. And if we zoom in, we're going to simply go ahead and we're going to tap on our object here. We're just going to grab this node here in the top right of it and just extend the eyes up a little bit. So the eyes are just going to get a little bit larger and a little bit more shocked. So if you go ahead and just drag your head through here, you can see it gets a little bit larger and the eyes just get a little bit bigger as well. So if you press play here, you just get a little fun animation between that. So zooming out, we're now going to go ahead and move into the 4th clip over here of our hammer and add in the animation of it hitting the nail. So just before the 4-second mark, we're going to go over to here. We're going to drag our head on the image. We're going to tap on it. We're going to add an action of move and scale. And what that will do is it'll add 1 at the beginning and also 1 here, because it will always add 1 at the beginning. Then we're going to go ahead and drag this to just beyond 4 seconds and add another one. So we're going to go to around about sort of here. We're then going to go ahead and drag to just here around about 4.5 seconds. So there should be a little gap here between these. And then we're going to go ahead and drag another one over to here around about just over 5 seconds and add another keyframe. So you should have 5 in this sort of configuration. The first one is going to be normal. The second one is also going to be normal. The third one though, if we tap on it, we're going to go ahead and make an adjustment to the actual hammer. So we'll tap in the top left for the node to rotate. So we'll tap on it, tap on the node and rotate it backwards a little bit, like so. And I may even go ahead and just sort of move it backwards and up a little bit. So what will happen is between here and here, the hammer is making its way backwards as if ready to strike the nail. So you can see we go over to here, it leans backwards, and then now this node here is in the normal position, so we need to go ahead and adjust this too. So we'll tap on the node in the top left. We're going to rotate the hammer until it's pretty much flat and horizontal, and move it then over here to hit the head of the nail. Bang on, like so. So between here and here, what happens is we've got normal. So we're just preserving the position of the hammer. It then leans back, charges up, and then bang, it's going to hit the nail and knock it down. So you can see we've perfectly framed our little action here, because it's just where the head of the nail is, and then just a couple of seconds later, it's gone. And then it makes its way all the way back to the normal position. So let's go ahead now and zoom out and go all the way to the beginning of our timeline and just see the animation we've built so far. So if we hit play, we can see that the hammer gets surprised, it then frowns, and then the nail knows what's coming and the hammer hits it. So we can just see all of that animation, and then we can go ahead and hit the nail. Now at this point, we can now start to add in lots of small elements to the actual animation, drawing them on the screen frame by frame using the flipbook tool. So at this point, you just want to make sure that you're happy with the duration of everything. We can make our way through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap on our hammer here. We're going to create a new track. So hit the plus and add a new track and drag it to the beginning. And let's go ahead and zoom in and let's see what sort of first animations we can add in. So if we go across and we scrub across our timeline, the first thing we see is that the nail makes its way up. It returns back to the upright position. So between here and here, we just need to get some arms out of our nail and have it push itself upwards. So we're going to make sure we're on this empty track here, and we go to the option of the drawing mode here. You'll see all your favorite Procreate tools, and we're going to make sure our color is simply set to black by double tapping at the bottom of the disc. We're going to go to our brush. Now I'm going to use something such as inking and the studio pen. Please feel free to use something else if you prefer the look of a different pen. And size wise, it's going to be around about sort of 5%. So what we'll do is you can just about see a little bit of a grey handle just here. If you drag and hold that and bring it down, you create the flipbook. And then here you are literally seeing frame by frame your design. So here at this point on this particular frame here, the nail is up. So at this point between here and here, we need to go ahead and make that movement look a bit more realistic. So on this one here where the nail is up, we're going to go ahead and zoom in. We're going to go ahead and create some long lines of movement as if this nail's flown up like this. Now at the moment, Procreate Dreams doesn't have a lot of the features that Procreate does in terms of stabilization and straight lines, etc. So you will have to simply freehand this. Now one thing we will do as well is we're going to go down here to the time and we're going to tap on it. And we're going to use the option here of onion skinning. So what onion skinning does is it's going to go ahead and show you your previous frame on the screen and also your future frames, so you can make sure your lines work out nicely. So what I mean by that is if I move a frame to the right hand side here now, my previous frames are in purple. So that lets me know that's where my lines were on the last frame. So now I can just draw in a line that's going to be shorter than that, like down to here, go to the next frame, and then they start to layer on top of each other. If this starts to get a bit sort of too much and you only want to see your previous one, you can go ahead and edit the onion skin. And at the minute it's showing me 4 frames, but if I change that and drop it down to simply 1, it's just showing me what I drew last. And then that way it's not going to get too overbearing with sort of all of the colour. So I'm going to just draw in some very small lines here. And so for 3 frames here, we simply just see these speedy lines get a little bit shorter as it makes its way up towards the top. Now what we'll then do is we'll hit the little cross. There's a little cross just here, and we tap on that and we can go back. And if we zoom in on this part of the timeline, it will just loop what it sees. So we can drag it to the beginning and hit play, and it should then look like it has a bit of speed as it makes its way up here. So if I zoom in, you should be able to see just a little bit of like an animation where those lines are getting shorter frame by frame. So this one here, if I grab my head, is the long lines, the medium lines, and the short lines, and we just create that speedy look to it. And one thing I want you to sort of bear in mind with your own animations is when you do things like this, don't stress over it, because it shows for a fraction of a second and you just get the illusion of what it's meant to be. So you don't need to sort of meticulously draw in each single line and make sure it's absolutely perfect, especially in something like this where we have a cartoon. Our nail shoots up, but how does it shoot up? So let's go over to around about here. So we're going to have to make our way backwards this time. So we're going to grab this grey handle and drag it down. Our previous frame was over here, which we drew those lines. We're not interested in those. Apart from the fact that here it's going to show you the yellow lines. Again, that's in the future. It's not on your current layer. And then we'll just create the tiniest little line here on the ends to kind of show how that speed's about to sort of build up and shoot upwards. We'll then go ahead and go to the frame before. And at this point, we need to start factoring in the arms and how they are going to shoot our nail upwards. So if we go across again to this frame here, just before the nail is up, I want to go ahead and draw in some arms that go outwards from here and are going to be out here, pushing on the ground like so. If we then go a frame before, we can see our future arms and we can just adjust them. And slowly I need them to start getting more tucked into the body. So I'm going to bring that sort of elbow joint outwards a little bit out to here. And I'm going to bring that a little bit closer in, and I'm going to try and just sort of smooth out the line a little bit as well, because we don't want that curve in the elbow too much. So here its arms are just sort of about to point outwards out of the ground where it's just been trapped in. So just a tiny little amount of arms. So tiny little arms, and then they progressively get longer and longer and longer until they sort of get to this point here. Then at this point, we're going to go ahead and tap on the next frame, and you can see the arms all the way down here. We're going to link the arms to up here where I want them to be, just underneath the eyes, and we're going to create the long area here in towards where we've drawn these. So we're going to go ahead and sort of draw in our arms down in towards this area here, so that the point where they touch the ground is exactly the same. So then that's essentially where its hands are positioned on the ground. We'll move a frame to the future and we'll just bring the arms up a little bit more and inwards, and we're going to just simply tuck them into its body. So we'll go ahead and make sure we draw both arms in, and then we go to the next frame and we just draw them really close to the body. And again, this is only going to show for a couple of seconds. So once you've done this, I'm going to go back through the frames for you. We're going to go all the way to the beginning of this little part of the animation. So little arms. Their arms get gradually bigger. They get out to a point where the hands are now happy to sit on the ground and push, and then it pushes the nail up. We then adjust where it sort of links into what would be a shoulder essentially. And then the arms disconnect from the ground and it tucks itself back in, and now it's just back to the asset. So just a very small animation there just to sort of propel the nail up into the air. And if we hit the cross again, we'll go ahead and go to the beginning and hit play. And you should have this nice push effect of the nail just pushing itself up. Then let's go ahead and continue through our design. So we get to this point here where the eyebrows, or well, our eyelids, should I say, of our hammer there, just immediately jump to this point here, as well as the mouth. So on these same frames, we're just going to make a bunch of adjustments everywhere we want. So here, for example, between here and the next frame, the mouth completely changes. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the very first frame that the mouth is then surprised. So I'm going to go to here. I'm going to go ahead and bring down the little line here so I can go back into flipbook mode. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to adjust this just manually. I'm going to create a little bit of a smile here. Just a little bit of one. So I'm going to adjust that. I'm just going to create it out into a bit of a point here. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my colors and double tap in the top left to select white. And then just fill this in, just manually. Again, this is only going to show for a very split second. So I'm just going to fill this in. So it's going to take it now from that mouth there where it's full on smiling to then the transition into the shocked mouth. So you might not be able to see too much there, but if we go over back to our timeline and we hit play, it's just a very quick additional change to the mouth. And then the next part is those eyelids. So they start off very low down and kind of frowny looking, and then they're up and they're completely gone. So we want to be on the first frame in which they're completely gone, which is here. Again, we'll just bring down the flipbook, we'll zoom in. And if we go to the previous frame, we can see that line. And what I want to do is I want to draw in on that line. So I'm going to make sure my color is set back to black. I'm going to make sure I draw in a very thin line. It doesn't need to be visible. I just want to draw that line in so that then on the next frame, I can see that line because it's onion skinning. And then I can work out where I want to sort of bring those new sort of expressions to. I'm going to just come across here and across here. And that's all you need to do. 3 frames, bringing up those eyelids into the more shocked position. Then let's go ahead and continue through the frames. Now, at this point, the hammer's starting to lean backwards and get really, really, really shocked. All the way up here is where it hits its peak for a couple of frames. In fact, it's 3 frames. So at its very highest, let's go ahead and zoom in and let's draw in some really big expressive sort of look to the eyes. And then we'll make our way to the left and we'll make our way to the right. So if we go left of frame, that's where they sit, and there's no sort of movement in the hammer, so we'll keep them pretty much the same position up high. We'll then go a frame before, and then we'll bring them down ever so slightly, just a little bit underneath. And then now the hammer's going to start making its way down, and we want to follow that because eventually we want these really expressive lines to just sink into the eyes themselves. So we want to just sort of really close the gap a little bit as it makes its way down into its normal position. So frame again, and we're trying to catch up and also make these lines a little bit smaller. You can see now I'm very close to the eyes, so that now pretty much on this sort of frame I can now sort of connect them on the sort of top edge of the eye, and then that's fine. So then they start to just appear from this frame onwards, and then they just continue to get higher and higher until it's really, really shocked. So from this frame here that was our highest point, let's do the same but to the right hand side now. So now the lines are starting to make their way downwards again a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and animate them and then bring them down, and again just playing a little bit of catch up to catch up with our little eyes here. So bringing that expression down, trying our best to speed it up. We'll get very, very close before we then do exactly the same as we did before. We'll probably get really close before then actually just tucking them in completely. So just adding like a little bit on the top of the eyes there. So let's zoom out and see our work. So if we go ahead and hit the cross again, we've got loads more frames here. Let's move across to the point where they're all pretty much visible in the frame. We're going to hit play. The nail makes its way in and the eyebrows go flying up into the air and bounce all the way back down. I'll zoom in for you there, and you can see those eyebrows just bouncing up and coming back down. So if we hit play, pause here now, let's continue to make our way across here. So what's next? So the hammer makes its way up, and let's zoom out. And then it's going to start to make the decision again that it wants to start smiling and frowning. So just like we did before, let's go ahead and create that middle state of the mouth. So here is pretty much where that is. I'm going to go ahead and go to the flipbook mode, so drag down. I'm going to make sure I'm just on that frame just before, and we're going to just make this mouth again a little bit bigger. So we're just going to go ahead and draw this out a little bit bigger, like so. Then go to our colors, double tap to select white, and fill in the gap on the inside here. Again, it's only going to show for a split second, and then jump between the frames. So if we then hit the cross here, and we take a look, we'll zoom in on that, and we'll just make sure we're happy with it. It just changes from a shocked expression to a smile. Let's then take a look out a timeline and see what's next. So we're just using this one track here just to add in a lot of animation. Let's then take a look and what is next. The next point is when the eyes drop down again. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get to the frame just before, which looks as if it's just here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go into the flipbook here. So we're just going to triple check that the frame here, the next one is when the eyes are down. And when the eyes are down, the lids, we're just going to simply go ahead and make sure our color is set to black by double tapping at the bottom of the disc. And we're going to draw in those really naughty, cheeky lines here underneath the eyes that just give us a very simple guide so you can really mask out some of your sort of work here and sort of aid yourself with your animation. So I've moved the frame to the left and I'm going to bring those eyelids back up and sort of smoothing them out a little bit as we make our way a little bit higher, and just tuck them right in up against the dark edge. Now, one thing to note, and we need to fix the other eyelids as well, is when we come down here, you notice they're white, and then they're grey. Let's hold down here to grab that grey colour here for the eyelids. Let's go back a frame, and then let's go ahead and draw in the grey here. So we're just going to draw in the grey, keeping it as best you can inside those lines and fill this in. Likewise, we'll go ahead and go over here and fill in the grey. Now, when you go to your next frame, you're going to see a lot of yellow. So that's because there's a lot drawn on that previous layer. If you need to, just tap on your time down here and turn off the onion skin, so hide it. And then just go ahead and just draw in that little bit of grey that we need in here, go to our next frame, I don't need to do that there as well. But what I will do is I'm going to go ahead and tap on the cross here for my flipbook. I'm going to go ahead and grab the eyelids that we made earlier. So I'm going to grab my head here, just find out where we did those eyelids, and they're here. And we're going to repeat. So here's a grey eyelid, that's a white eyelid. So we'll bring down the flipbook, zoom in, and we'll just add in that grey in the eyelids here. Doing our very best to keep it in the lines. I would urge you just to spend a little bit longer than I am. I'm just trying to make sure we get through it for the tutorial. We'll add in that grey here as well. But again, it's not really critical, as I've said before. So we're zoomed out, we've done our eyelids now, we can hit the cross and see our timeline again. Let's again make our way back over to where we were. We were over here, where we've just brought those lids down. And now at this point, we can see that the next sort of stage of this is when our hammer is going to make its way backwards. Let's add in some motion lines here. So it's around about here that it starts to move. Making sure I'm on my drawing track that we've been drawing on. I'm going to bring down the flipbook. I'm going to go to my colors and I'm going to go ahead and grab black by double tapping at the bottom of the disc. It's important now that we turn on the onion skin. So we're going to show the onion skin. And we're going to go ahead and from this frame here to the next one, we can see it just starts to lean backwards a little bit. So I'm going to draw in some diagonal kind of lines here. Let's change that angle a little bit. Let's make that a little bit further backwards. So I'm just picking 3 points here. And then I'm going to move to the next one and I can see those lines. So I'm going to sort of almost make them the same sort of length, a little bit longer, as if we've got a little bit of drag. And now it starts to really move. So we'll just create some thin lines off of those points again. Not quite as long. And now we need to play catch up a little bit because the animation's speeding up as it makes its way backwards. And now it's going to continue. Now, at this point, don't make them too long. We're going to start to think about the fact it's going to slow down in a minute as it makes its way up towards its peak. So we're just going to make smaller lines here as we make our way up towards its peak where it's going to slowly stop, which is pretty much here. You can see that lack of movement now. So I'm just drawing in 3 tiny little lines here and then it stops. And that's perfect now. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and start to move in the opposite direction. It's going to go downwards. So we're going to move a frame across and now it's really sped up. So it goes up to here where it's its peak and now it's starting to move. And here is where we want it to move now. So we're going to go ahead and draw in a line off of here, off of this corner and off of this corner here. And that one's probably a little bit too long at this point. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move to the next frame. You can see it's moved quite far ahead and we want to sort of feel like we're catching up with it. So we're going to bring this line almost towards the sort of same point over here, if not a little bit shorter, but these lines are a lot longer. We're trying to play catch up. We're also trying to show the velocity and the speed and how quick this hammer's now speeding up to hit the nail, like so. We'll move to the next one. You can see it's really moving out of frame now. So we're now playing catch up and we're just going to draw in some long lines now. Let's move to the next one, but also take a look at where we are. We're very close to the nail now. So let's start to slow those lines down a little bit shorter in its sort of speed there. And as it gets towards the point where it's now hit the nail perfectly, we can still keep those lines in there. They just now need to be quite short. And on the next frame, they're pretty much going to go. We're just going to add in the tiniest little lines here just to show the catch up. So 3 tiny little lines here. And taking a look at that, let's just zoom out a little bit first of all. I got confused by the angle there. Let's go back and see the work we did. So we've got loads more frames here for the hammer. We'll zoom in on these frames here and we'll hit play. Bang. You can see that movement as it makes its way backwards. It then has those little tails and then also has the speed going downwards as well to hit the nail. So when it hits the nail, let's go ahead and add some animation around that too. So it's making its way in towards here. So it's coming down and it's going to hit the nail here. So it's going to be on this frame here. We'll grab our flipbook by dragging down. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and draw in some sort of like rings almost like this on the side. Little rings and also some sort of expressive lines outwards as well. Just to show that bang. We're then going to move a frame across. Now what we're then going to do is we're going to draw in some long lines off of our nail because it's been shot into the ground. We're then going to take a look at our little sort of lines here we created. One is sound, so that's that little sort of line here, the little curve. I'm going to make that a little bit larger. And my little dash lines here, I'm going to make a little bit shorter as they sort of make their way a little bit further outwards. So a little bit shorter. We want them to quite quickly sort of dissipate. Moving along, we're then going to go ahead and do our little trail lines here again. So it's almost like we're playing catch up again. We're just going to create those shorter lines here. We're going to create some sort of smaller curves outwards and then some very tiny little dashes, very tiny ones now. We want them to really fade out into the rest of the animation. And then we'll create a little bit of a curve there as well, just a very small one. Now just triple check that you are happy with the animation, maybe zoom out, but otherwise we'll carry on and add in some very small trail lines here, just very little small ones here on the edges. And then you can maybe sort of add in probably just the little curves, in fact, because that now should be all sort of starting to fade away now. So what we'll do is we'll hit the cross here and we'll take a look at the work there. So what should happen now is the hammer comes down and bang, you get that kind of bang animation where the waves are going outwards, the little C shapes we created. And then also you get the little trail lines on the edge of the nail to show its speed and momentum down, and it almost tricks you into thinking it's actually moving, because in fact it's just here and then here. There's no in between, but the little trail lines on the edge there just trick you into thinking there's a little bit of movement. And you can actually go back in there if you want to and maybe make more trail lines. So as it makes its way down here, you could add in a few more, for example. So we could go ahead, and you don't have to be on the flipbook mode to draw. You can do it in this mode. I'm just going to go ahead and add in some additional ones and then go to the next frame and just make those ones a little bit shorter. There's always room for a tiny bit more with these types of animations. You just add in the next little tiny effect. So all I did was just create very small lines. As they make their way frame by frame, they get smaller and smaller. Again, let's hit play. And you can just see those little trails now just showing the sort of speed as the nail gets smashed into the ground. Now let's go ahead and simply zoom out of our entire animation right towards the beginning and also out so we can see the whole thing. And let's hit play. Our hammer sees the nail pop itself back out, gets excited because it can hit it back down, and then the nail pops itself back out, and we just end up on a loop. And the nail, this is my favorite part, when the nail knows what's coming, when the hammer starts to frown, it changes its expression and it knows what's about to happen. And there we go, you have your animation. Let's just quickly make some minor adjustments to this. Let's hit the pause. Let's go ahead and first of all, let's change the background if you want to. You can go ahead and tap here. You can change the background color. We could go up to like an orangey tone and make it a very light orange here. What we'll then do is also go ahead and we're going to go to our tracks down here. I'm going to create a new track and it will make its way to the top. So I was on my track here with all my little frames that we drew in, and then we've got a brand new track at the top. And then making sure we're on that new track here at the top, we're in drawing mode, we're going to zoom in on the nail. Now this is totally optional, you don't have to do this. We're going to make sure that we just add in like a little sort of crack here in the ground. And then draw another sort of crack line out here where that nail is being cracked into the ground, and it's just going to add like a little bit more sort of something else going on. Now when we zoom in on our timeline all the way over on the right hand side, this will be the maximum width of your timeline now. So you just hold down on it and drag it to the end here. So the difference between this track and the flipbook ones is we didn't go into the flipbook mode to simply draw on one individual frame. We drew something and it makes it the full duration. So that's just a very simple thing to know if you want to sort of factor that into your own designs. And then what we'll do is we'll go to the dream file here. We're going to go ahead and change our timeline to the option of loop. So it's going to hit loop. So it's just going to keep running over and over and over again. If we hit done, and if we go full screen with 4 up here and we hit the option of play, our animation now will loop its way through and you've completed another Procreate Dreams animation. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments down below if you want more Procreate Dreams content and what you thought of something like this. And also, really important, if you can let me know in the comments if you did the drawing stage or not. It will let me know if I need to factor that in or just simply provide you with assets in the future. As always, a massive shout out to all of my supporters over on Patreon who help make these videos possible. I post exclusive Procreate tutorials every single month to my Patreon supporters, and they get their names featured in videos, access to a catalogue of over 90 exclusive tutorials, and much, much more. So hit the link in the description down below if you want to come and support the channel. And if you liked this Procreate Dreams tutorial, you'll probably like this one on the screen now. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.